Hi there, this is Jeff, and I'm going to go over how to get the artwork ready for the 6-foot curved easy tube display, also known as the tubular display. And to start off with, what I'm going to do is actually drag the template layer into Photoshop. And it's going to ask me a couple questions before it opens. One is it's going to say crop to, and you want this to go ahead and be media box. And then for the resolution, you want this to be set at 125 dpi. And then for the color mode, you want this to be CMYK. Once you have that in place, go ahead and click OK. Now this is going to actually pull open the full size template. And what you're going to want to do is actually design literally right on top of this template. And it's really going to assure that everything is the right proportion, that the position is correct, etc. And so a couple things to point out. You want to make sure that you keep the template as its own separate layer on the right hand side. So if you go to File and Place, you can start adding in your logos, your pictures, any of your design elements right on top of this template. Just make sure to keep the template as its own separate layer on the right hand side. This is because you're either going to hide it or you're going to delete it when you're all done so that you're just left with your final artwork. Also, you're going to see that there's some different colors in here. So this dark blue that goes around the perimeter is actually the bleed area. That's an area where this graphic is going to get printed out and then stitched and sewn. And that usually takes place right around the edge here near the bleed. So what you want to do is you do want to extend your background all the way to the very outer edge of the bleed line here. Let's say your background is camouflage. Well, go ahead and extend it all the way to the very outer edge. However, any important elements like logos or text, you want to make sure that it's within this yellow box, because the yellow box is considered the safe area. So it's not going to be too close to the edge, and it's certainly not going to get cut off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you an example of some artwork that does fit the template really nice, and that'll give you an idea of what we're looking for. Okay, so here's an example of some artwork that fits the template really well, and I know that because if I go over to the artwork layer and I right click and I go to blending options, I can actually change the opacity down, and you can begin to see that the template layer is right underneath it. So this is really helpful because it gives me an idea of where everything is located and positioned on the template. Here you can see the logo. We want to make sure it's within the yellow box, and clearly you can see that it is. So once we know everything looks good, you can go ahead and click cancel. And at this point, what you want to do is you want to inspect your pictures, your logos, all your design elements to check the resolution. You want to make sure that everything looks great up close and that there's no pixelation. And you can do that by pressing Control and plus on the PC, and you can zoom all the way in until about 1 inch equals 1 inch in real life. So here you can see on the ruler bar, here's 35 inches and here's 36 inches. And that's about 1 inch in real life. And so that way I know exactly what it's going to look like printed out up close. And what you can do is use the navigator tool, and you can begin to comb around and look at the logos, look at the pictures, and just comb all the way around to make sure everything looks good. Because how it looks here is exactly how it's going to be printed out. Once you're done there, you can press Control and minus and zoom all the way back out again. And at this point, what you want to do is you want to make sure to save a copy of the working layered file. So in case you need to make any changes now or in the future, you can always revert back to it. Once you've done that, you're ready to go ahead and either hide or delete the template layer like we talked about earlier. And you could do that by just clicking on the layer and clicking the I to either hide it, or what I do is I usually just drag the whole template layer into the trash can. So now we're ready for the final step before we save it. And what we can do is go to Layer and click Flatten. And what that's going to do is it's just going to compress all your layers together. And so now you're just left with your final artwork. And so if you have any fonts maybe that you used on your machine, you don't want those to be lost if it gets transferred over to another computer, etc. So once everything is locked in place by pressing Layer and Flatten, you know that it's going to be safe. And now what you're ready to do is go ahead and click File and Save As, and you can go ahead and save it as a high resolution PDF. So that's usually the best file type that you're going to want to use, is a high resolution PDF. And that's going to be the print ready artwork. So if you have any questions, obviously feel free to ask. Thanks a lot.